This is Keys to the Shop, Founder Friday edition, and today we're talking with Maxwell Mooney of Narrative Coffee. Hello and welcome everybody, and thanks for joining me here at Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. And today is the second installment of Founder Friday, where at the last Friday of every month, we feature owners of some of the best coffee shops around, and we get to hear their story and learn from their experiences and get advice from them. It's usually a really encouraging time, so I'm really excited today and honored to have Maxwell Mooney, the owner of Narrative Coffee in Everette, Washington, as our guest. Maxwell has been in the coffee profession for just 4 years, but in that time, he's amassed quite a bit of experience both in the cafe and in competition. Some of his accomplishments include top 8 honors multiple times, like top 8 finisher at Coffee Fest World Latte Art Open. He's won multiple latte art throwdowns. I mean, who can count, really? Plus, he's finished 10th place at the Northwestern Regional Barista Competition in 2013 and 3rd place at the Big Western Competition in 2015. And this year, he's one of the top 18 people moving on to Seattle to compete in the U.S. Coffee Championships in the Barista competition. So good luck to you there, Maxwell. And he's very close, so close, to opening his first brick and mortar store. And I wanted to get him on the show to share his journey with us. How does one go from starting in coffee 4 years ago to now opening your own shop? Just a fascinating journey that he's been on. It was encouraging to talk about the drive that he has, the goals that he has for his brand, Narrative Coffee. And I think you're going to leave this conversation with some insights that will help you on your journey as you progress in your coffee career. So there's some really great stuff in this interview, and I'm just going to take you to my conversation with him right now. Okay, we're here with Maxwell Mooney from Everette, Washington, and Narrative Coffee. Maxwell, really awesome to have you here. Excited to talk to you. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm doing well. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so forgive any of those little funny voice things that happen when you deal with that.
All right. Well, you sound amazing. No worries, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Make me blush.
So I had the pleasure of hanging out with you a little bit at Coffee Champs in Knoxville not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, and got to hear a little bit about your story, the details of your evolution in the coffee industry. You've been in the business of professional coffee for about 4 years now, and you're already opening your own business. I'm interested to know, how did Maxwell Mooney get into coffee? Why are we blessed with such a great guy in this profession of ours? And you can take it from the top, like, I was drinking a lot of coffee when I was young, and my grandma's house, or start where you want. Sure. But how did you get here?
Man, I guess we get back all the way up. Growing up, my dad married a Mormon woman, so coffee was not really allowed in the house too much. And whenever that relationship wasn't quite working out so well, coffee came back in my house, and I was probably like 14 or 15. And I remember just really, like, one of the first things that I wanted to do was try coffee. And it was like Folgers with powdered creamer, and it was horrible, but I wanted to like it anyway. So I guess that's like the first like coffee experiences that I can really remember. I remember back when I was really young, like my mom drinking mochas and stuff at like the university bookstore, coffee shop, and that kind of a thing. But that was kind of my first memory of coffee, I guess. And then I got really, I moved up to the Pacific Northwest from like Arizona at the time. And in the Pacific Northwest, everybody, even if they don't really know coffee, they think they really know coffee. And so everybody always talked about coffee all the time. And so people would, go to different stands and stuff. And so I kind of learned a little bit about coffee through that. And I was working at McDonald's for a long while. And they released their McCafe drinks at the time. So it was there that I learned that a cappuccino is the same thing as a latte with extra foam to keep the heat in.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's precisely what it is. So I did that. And then kind of my first revelation in coffee, I was in college And I went to college in this little town called Kirkland. You might be familiar with it if you're a shopper of Costco. But
Yes.
went to this college there, and there's a Zoka in Kirkland, and so I went there with a friend in like 2009 and had a mind-blowingly good 16-ounce caramel latte.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
and it was like the first time I had a drink in a ceramic for here mug, and I had like a beautiful Rosetta on top. So I was like, man, this is an amazing experience. And so I like kind of gotten interested in coffee that way. And then a really popular website at the time was called StumbleUpon, and it was like a random website, like generator, I guess, almost like you click interest that you're interested in, and then you hit stumble, and it'll randomly throw you onto a website related to those interests.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interests I hit was coffee, and it threw me on to coffeegeek.com, and then down the rabbit hole I went.
Oh, yeah.
Found homebarista.com, got really involved in the forums. Was like, man, I really want to get a setup, so I bought a home espresso machine and a grinder and did all that thing and taught myself how to like do latte art and how to make coffee and all that stuff. So that was kind of like what really got me into it, and I fell deep in that rabbit hole, started home roasting and all that fun stuff. So once I started doing that, I got really interested and involved.
So yeah, you have such a similar story. A lot of us have that. We found Coffee Geek or Home Barista, and we just started feeding that desire
Mm-hmm.
to learn more about coffee, even if it wasn't the right information. It was just information, and we wanted it. It reinforced that thought, like, am I crazy for liking this? I should go on the forum and check. No, I'm not. No.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what made you take the step from home enthusiast to getting a job in coffee?
Yeah, I guess whenever I started home roasting, a bunch of friends wanted to buy my coffee. And so I was like kind of trying to think of a name for a potential brand, that ever worked out. And a lot of home roasters will have this same experience, but I was like, man, maybe I could start my own roasting company. Like I was like trying to sell coffee that I roasted off a popcorn popper at 50 grams at a time
Wow.
to people who wanted to buy coffee. So it took me, 8 hours to do like 3 pounds. But I was doing that, and so that's where the name Narrative was first born.
All those years ago.
Yeah, that was in 2012.
Wow.
So I came up with that, started a Facebook page for it, came up with some horrible graphics, and that was kind of the first iteration. That was before I ever worked in coffee. And then I was working at a church part-time as like a youth pastor and worship pastor and every lackey, just a general church lackey. And it was really part-time, and my wife and I, we had just had our daughter, so I needed to kind of bring in a little extra income, and so another part-time job was necessary, and it's like, okay, well, I could do something I'm familiar with and like work at like McDonald's or whatever, or I could try to get a job in coffee. That's something I really care about and at least have some fun doing it. So I applied to a bunch of places, and I got hired for Cafe Ladro in January of 2013.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I got hired there, the first shift that I worked, I guess, was their in-house barista competition. And I like signed my paperwork to join the company. And then I was talking to the manager before I officially got hired. She's like, hey, there's this in-house thing going on. I don't know if you have any interest or not, but I think you might enjoy watching it. And I was like, actually, can I compete in it?
Dang.
So classic me, just, jumping right into something.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. And so I went and I was kind of talking to Cole McBride on Twitter a bit, and then he worked at Visions, so he gave me some time at Visions where I could go and work on my first commercial machine ever. So the first, I think they still have the exact same machine that was the first one that I ever worked on. It was a Stella Decafe from Unique.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, so I went and did that and learned how to do that, and then I did the in-house thing, and I was the alternate. So they had two main competitors, which were Michael Ryan and Ryan Beeson, and then I was like their third backup competitor. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So I worked there for 4 months, competed in the Northwest Regional Barista competition for them, and then I got to the point where I needed to bring in a little bit more money over the summer because I wanted to try to get back to school. So I ended up selling pest control door to door in California.
Dang, it's related somehow, I think, to coffee.
Yeah, no, not really at all.
No, not at all. Yeah,
it's cool.
And
I made enough money to support the family.
So you eventually moved on from pest control to you work at another coffee shop. You ended up working, I think, at Spotted Cow for what, 3 years?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. So whenever I came back from selling pest control, needed to get back into school and finish up my my school. And so I needed to find a job that I could make the hours work and stuff. And I had a few different job offers that were kind of on the table, but Spotted Cow, the closing shift started at 5:30 and my classes ran till 2:30, and like Ladro, the closing shift started at 2. So it just worked out logistically. So I ended up being there and just really found a community and incredible group of people there. So
nice. I really applaud you for maybe not a strange reason, but immediately makes me think it might be a strange reason that, going to, sell pest control in California and like table coffee for a time for such a great reason. It's hard when you have a passion for something to table it because you feel like that momentum is going to be interrupted. Like there's a career that you want to pursue in this thing. Maybe, did you have any thoughts of maybe this is it for coffee when that happened?
Definitely had some of those thoughts because it's like, barista work, as pretty much everybody listening knows, is not exactly a lucrative gig.
Right. Yeah.
But, and like selling pest control door to door, I was blessed to be successful in it. And so, I was making a lot more money. Like I made, $28,000 in 3 months.
Wow.
Which is like what I make as a barista for a whole year kind of thing,
Dang.
So there are definitely those kind of moments where you think about those things. But I also made a really strong effort to stay involved and get involved as much as I could down in the coffee scene down in LA. And I met a lot of really great people down there. I go to throwdowns and like meet people and go hang out at shops whenever I wasn't working and that kind of thing. So, I guess the thing was, is like I knew that I needed to do another thing so that I could support my family and also then kind of stay involved and be as engaged as I could. So,
in all of your jobs that you've had in coffee, or in the 2 jobs that you've had in coffee with Ladro and Spotted Cow, you're now opening your own store. What made you jump again? This is like the 3rd tier of involvement of coffee for you, like. Home, it's safe, it's just a hobby kind of enthusiast thing. Now you've worked for coffee for a while, it's cool. But now you're like, no, I'm probably going to do coffee for the rest of my life and I'm going to open a business. Was there a time at Spotted Cow where you just thought, I have enough information, I have enough contacts or understanding to just make the jump and do it?
Yeah, there was... There are definitely some times where I kicked around the idea. I was like, maybe I should just do this, but I was like looking back at it and like thinking about it objectively as I could and asking friends and folks in the community, not necessarily in the coffee community, but folks that I just trusted and, who have a lot of wisdom and insight, just kind of talking through the idea of maybe kicking around my own company. And a lot of folks were like, you're not quite ready yet. That was definitely true. So there was a lot of patiently waiting and learning and spending time making Spotted Cow the best place that I could possibly make it, I guess. And so there was some big stuff involved in there, and I really wanted to stay as involved there as I could. And we were talking about opening up some second locations and those sorts of things and expanding the business. It just wasn't quite in the cards, and the ownership there wasn't quite on the same headspace as I was at. So I guess kind of that was the major catalyst of why I decided to go on ahead and pursue my own thing, because I was trying to do that with Spotted Cow and help grow the business there. And but I saw a really big opportunity in the city called Everette. Like, I think this is a really incredible opportunity, and I think we should take it. And that concept wasn't quite met with the same enthusiasm that I have with it. And so I decided that it was like, okay, well, I think it's a huge opportunity, and I'd like to take it for myself. So that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to start really crafting out a business plan, really working on this and trying to make a go at it. I'm going to, keep doing my job at Spotted Cow and do that as faithfully as I have in the past. So it was like every free moment that I had was crafting out a business plan or working on financial projections or meeting with business mentors, all that stuff, all that really hard work that doesn't really show up on, like the social medias and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's a side hustle that you just had to get in there where you could.
Yeah. So, I guess that was kind of the main genesis of like, okay, maybe I should make a go at this. Was kind of that initial expansion thought.
That seems like it's keeping with your kind of modus operandi from in-house competitions to just jump in there just because, and now you're just jumping into this this entrepreneurial venture because you believe in it strongly and you have a genuine faith in this opportunity. And it's not because you're being too risky. Obviously, you quit coffee to provide for your family. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to believe anyone based on your history of choices, I'll believe you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
When it comes to what's a good opportunity and what's not. But Everette is a pretty small town. Why not Seattle? Why not a place where people are just groomed and ready to buy lots of coffee?
Well, I think that's kind of, in a lot of ways, that is Everett. I think a lot of folks there are groomed for it and ready. Nobody's just given them really the chance. I feel like in a lot of ways, but kind of a lot of people ask me why not Seattle all the time, and I could probably put a shop there and it would probably be pretty successful. They have a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot going on in Seattle. It's a huge cultural hub. But there is a whole group of people outside of Seattle who have completely unmet needs, and they need good coffee. And I know people who will drive 40 miles to go down to Seattle to get good coffee. Because these are the folks who, they know what it is, they've had it before, but they just don't have anything close to them. And so in a lot of ways, like, my goal is to be that for them. And that's what I was trying to do at Spotted Cow. And I think we were successful in doing that. And they're still successful in doing that. So I guess that's been a really big personal goal of mine, is to serve this community north of Seattle in Snohomish County, which is the name of the county that we're in, just to bring coffee to people who may not have access to it up here. So, and also, just like from a pure business standpoint, like, the market in Seattle is pretty close to saturated. It's not, but it's definitely a hard market to jump into, and you got to be 100% dialed in at every given stage to even hope to survive for a few years. And like, you have completely untouched cities outside of Seattle who are just begging for it. And so just from a pure market reach standpoint, I think it makes a whole lot more sense to go in a place where people really want it, but nobody's there.
Nice. That's really cool. The small town market and the untapped potential. Like, you don't know what the community there is going to be like, but you're sort of like a catalyst for what could be many shops in the future. Like, beyond Narrative Coffee, there could be people that work for you that start their own shop in Everett. Is that a hope of yours?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like more places where I can drink coffee that I'm excited about, So
that's cool. Yeah. So what is your narrative concept? We spoke a little bit about your plans. You had a pop up for a little bit, a cart. I remember following your Instagram and the sunny weather and then the rainouts that you had and the struggle. Yeah. And now you've got a brick and mortar that's coming. When is that coming?
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit. It's coming slower than I'd like. So I'm sure there's plenty of gold to mine in there for the podcast listeners. But so I guess it started, obviously it started when I started home roasting. That was whenever the first concept came out. So officially, I think our Facebook account got created in July of 2012 or something like that. So I did that, and then I let that settle out, because I'm not ready to run a business. I don't have any idea of what's going on with this. I'm like not there at all. So I tabled that for a while and kind of used the Narrative moniker to do a few like side events and stuff for friends. Like I had believe it, she's actually our very first employee, Larissa. She's the only other person who works for Narrative. She and her husband, well, now her husband, but she and her fiance at the time wanted to have some coffee at their wedding. So they knew that I had some home setup stuff and asked me if I would be willing to do coffee at their wedding. And that was the first official event that Narrative ever did.
I think I remember seeing that online.
This wedding. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And that was not with my cart. It was just with a little table setup that I have and my little E61 espresso machine. But so I did that, and that was really incredible. And doing that, I had a number of other friends who attended the wedding who were like, this is amazing, and wanted to have coffee at their own weddings. And so I kind of ran into a little bit of a market doing that. So that was kind of what I ended up doing with Narrative for a while, was just kind of doing catering events and stuff like stuff like that. And then in 2015, my wife and I decided that was kind of around the time where we're like, okay, like Spotted Cow isn't wanting to expand so much, so now maybe it's time for us to kind of do our own thing and see how that goes. So we started Narrative in 2015 technically, and we did one event. It was a food truck festival in Everette. And then just the rest of the time was spent working with my business mentor and getting all the stuff dialed in and all that fun stuff. And I had been given a cart from a church, and I kind of restored it and restored the espresso machine that came on it, and did all that stuff. And so I took that cart and did a wedding with it because it required a lot of power, but I had it just sitting in the garage. So I reached out to some folks in Everett that I knew, and some of the folks on like the city government and all that fun stuff, and asked them if they knew of a place where I could put it. So they found a spot, and so that's where I went and did the pop up. And that was the big move that happened, because I went pretty much out of Spotted Cow at that time and launched the pop up, and then I ran into the brick and mortar 3 days after I launched the pop up.
Wow.
So I was walking around down. I'd been looking for spaces for years, like 2 years at that point, I think. And I talked to a few other places and quite a few different landlords and the like to see if we could connect, and nothing ever worked out. It was like either they were interested and like we couldn't get our funding locked in time, or, like they weren't super interested because of, any given number of reasons. So I looked at like 8 or 9 different spaces before I found this one. And then 3 days after I launched the pop-up and made a go for it, I found this one, and it was just like, it was there. There was no sign on the building. It didn't say for lease or anything. And the only sign was a no trespassing sign that was made by the Downtown Everett Association. And I happened to know somebody on that. And so I reached out to him and was like, hey, do you know what this building is? And he's like, man, that was like one I was thinking of for you. So
wow,
I just worked out from there, and I talked to the landlord, and then brought on and was able to connect with an incredible friend and acquaintance at the time named Richard, who I met through a Baristas Guild of Washington State page, which is just a baristas group that I help kind of admin and stuff like that. And it's really active here in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of coffee folks from outside of the state too are part of the group, so they can engage in the conversation and kind of fill in some of the knowledge gaps and some of those things. But we connected through that, and it turned out that he was interested in helping partner with a company to get started. And so now he's a partner at Narrative. So,
wow, that's a really amazing thing that you just you started to move forward with your concept, and it sort of just led you to this place with no sign that now is your brick and mortar. That just is amazing. That's pretty cool. Your concept of Narrative as it's evolved, what do you hope that it provides? I know you're going to be offering I know you're going to be offering like waffles and different espresso concept. Like, what is the concept of the store, and what do you hope to accomplish with your store, with Narrative in Everett? What do you hope people walk away from your store experiencing and thinking about?
Totally. So I guess maybe the big thing is that our overarching goal is to be a place that makes people feel welcomed. We have a variety of different values, and the biggest thing is that like hospitality is paramount for us. It's making people feel welcomed for the purpose of creating community and creating it's in coffee we talk about it a lot, and maybe it's it feels overdone, but we don't still recognize the gravity of it, but creating a third place and like really giving our communities a space in which to thrive. And so that's a big reason for what I want to do. And I guess the other main thing that is a separator for us is that I believe that hospitality is most lived out when paired with quality. I think the way that you can be most hospitable to somebody is to give them something that's truly, truly great and the best that we can possibly give them. And so those are kind of our two overarching values as a company. We have a variety of other ones that kind of help fill in those kind of less explicit areas, but those are kind of the main things, and that kind of drives the overall program of the business, I guess. So we're doing like the multi-roaster thing right now. We're possibly going to be looking. We've had roasting in the business plan for a while. Obviously, that's kind of the roots of the company is in like roasting, but we may work on doing some like private label stuff or something. I'm not exactly sure just yet, but
Sure.
that's in the cards, and then we're doing the waffles and stuff. Is a lot of that comes from like the needs of the community. Like I just looked around, I'm like, what do people need here? Like what can we do to help that? And so like light breakfast, easy grab and go type stuff is a really big need. We're right across the street from the city hall, which is one of the bigger buildings in downtown. And then there's the county courthouse adjacent to us, and then right behind that is the county government buildings. So we have a lot of professional folks, and then there's a company called Funko. They make like vinyl toy figurines.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So some people might be familiar with them. If you see them, you know them. But they're moving their headquarters from South Everette to downtown Everette, like a block away from where we're at. So
whoa.
It should be really good. And we should be able to kind of meet a lot of needs that way. So that's kind of where those extra things came from. And obviously they're inspired by our values of high quality and those sorts of things as well.
So the theme that seems to have come up a few times is the needs of the community. So you're offering a food thing at your shop that's based on the needs of the community, and you want to start your business in this small town because they don't have anything. And from a business standpoint, obviously this is a good untapped market for you to start a business in. Where do you get your driving force for pursuing something like this? What drives you to fill the needs of people, and your hospitality? Like, where does your hospitality concept come from?
I guess a lot of this comes down to like I've had a lot of my own needs met by the coffee community and just by my communities in general, right? And that's part of what makes a community is like working together to help each other move forward. So there's a lot of inspiration that comes from that, and a not small part of who I am as a human being is directly related to my faith, which strongly kind of influences a lot of the values that I hold and those sorts of things. Like to me, hospitality it's a huge buzzword right now, and a lot of people talk about it for good reason. I'd rather people talk about it and it become a buzzword than not talk about it at all. But for me, it's a worldview. If nothing else, it's a way that you think about life and the way that you think about people, and just a position for you to engage with other people in. So I guess it's just a natural kind of extension of everything that I want to do is around making people feel comfortable and making them like feel taken care of, is a really big thing, and giving people a space that they feel safe in, and creating those like safe spaces for people of all stripes. So I guess that's kind of a huge thing. And just from like general thing is like, what if you're not doing something positive? Why are you doing it? Like why would a business exist if it's not seeking to do something and serve a greater goal? I'm not about just making money. Otherwise, I would probably wouldn't be in coffee. So
wow, yeah, that's of course. Every time I talk to you, there's somehow I mention a book of some kind. But your Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited book talks about that concept of, if you're going to start a business, it better be to change the world, or why start it? And at first, it seems kind of a cheeky thing to say, like change the world. Yeah, okay, like the whole world, maybe just your world. Maybe the people that are just in Everette are the people that you're serving. And like you mentioned earlier about blooming where planted in Spotted Cow and your past jobs in coffee. And that's kind of it's a mature point of view on work, because a lot of baristas want to move on to greener pastures pretty quickly. And only being 4 years into coffee, you seem to have grasped that concept. So I wonder if you could speak to that value of sort of staying where you are and being rooted in a community and helping see that develop over the long term, rather than sort of like bouncing around from job to job, which in and of itself is not bad. It's not, wrong, but where is the value in sticking where you are in the tough times to long-term benefit?
yeah, I think there's a lot of values in this. James Hoffman wrote a really good blog that kind of touches on some of this as well as an overall professional development blog, but it definitely touched on that. And I think there's a particular value that comes in like expressing a commitment and following through with that, even whenever it gets challenging. Um, it grows you as a human being in addition to helping grow a business that you're a part of or anything like that. Um, and this isn't to say that the answer for everything is like, if you're receiving like managerial abuse or something that like you should stick around and stick it out, but it's to say that like oftentimes we don't ever learn as human beings and as professionals how to like continue to work through that eventual sort of complacency, I guess, that comes from staying in a place for a really long time and seeing the same people every day for year in and year out and those sorts of things. And particularly for the ambitious coffee professional, and especially for a lot of the baristas out there, like our first kind of goal is to just resume build and like go to the hottest and trendiest shops and move to some different state and work for a really like well-known and well-regarded coffee shop and take as much as we can from that before we move on to the next one and that sort of a thing. And what ends up happening is while you may learn some cool systems tricks and some cool perspectives, you don't build a sense of commitment to anything other than just personal growth, I guess, or knowledge acquisition, I would rather say. And so if you ever do get ready to start a business, starting a business is a commitment. It's a requirement to stick around and make something for the people that you're involved in, and to ensure that your employees will continue to have a job, and all those really important things. And a lot of that doesn't come from bouncing around and learning the newest systems tricks and all those sorts of things. You can learn a lot of those things just by having conversations or reading or watching other shops, or talking to people, or listening to the Keys to the Shop podcast, or
Darn
any
right.
variety of number of things, right? But the loyalty and the I guess the character building aspect of sticking around in something, whether good or bad, is invaluable experience, and I don't know if it can be taught through communication other than just being involved and sticking around. So, yeah.
I totally agree with that, man. There is sort of a plateau that you can reach when you're in a shop long enough that gives you this itch, like, maybe I've outgrown this shop and I need to move on. And I think if we had some skepticism about that reflex, it might help balance it so that we stick through just long enough to like break through. It's like that whole the metaphor of going in and digging in the mine and giving up about a foot away from gold.
Yeah.
And so many times in my career, I've been in a job where I felt like, wow, this sucks right now in this moment. It sucks, and I can think of maybe how it evolved to suck the way it does. But right around the corner, even a month from that moment, things opened up. I changed. And I really resonate with what you're saying there. And it makes me think that, in the 4 years that you've been in coffee, you could be at a place of greater understanding than somebody who's been in coffee for like myself, 17 years. If you just have the right mentality, you can get more out of a shorter period of time. So you're saying that patience and loyalty to where you are and making it better, and maybe being more curious about where you are than what's outside of where you are is a good thing for probably all baristas to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it sounds a little funny coming from me, the guy who's moving faster than most.
Sure.
But yeah. I do think it's a really important thing. And, I turned down a number of job offers while I was at Spotted Cow that were really enticing, as far as like, I could work at a shop that's got like a lot of clout and name recognition and all that stuff. And, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, like the people that you're building a community with, those are the people who support you, and they will make your life better. And those are the people who will care about you when all the accolades stop coming in, and you're just the same person as you were, but like all that stuff is like building a community around you is absolutely essential for just personal experience, I guess. So,
right.
Yeah.
And what is community except just a collection of relationships? And relationships take time. So,
Yeah.
If you stick around long enough, you might just end up with a relationship or two. So,
Yeah. Did you come up with the community as a collection of relationships? Because that is genius.
Yeah. Well, that just now, trademarked keys
Yeah.
to the shop, right?
Keys to the shop. Nobody steal it. That's gonna end up as somebody's like tagline.
Well, I've been thinking actually about relationships in terms of our profession and how we treat staff in particular. This is not to detract too much from what we're talking about, but I think it fits that, you're going to have, you have one employee now, you're going to have a lot of employees at some point, and relationships between staff members are oftentimes more important, a la Danny Meyer, than staff to customers, especially when there's power dynamics involved between boss and worker. I know Ashley Rodriguez just released her podcast, Boss Barista, and they talked in one part of their first or second podcast about the idea that a lot of baristas don't know what they want in their positions. And part of your hospitality and care for people is sort of not only empathizing, but sort of preemptively imagining what it could be and helping them discover that thing about them. And that comes from dedicated individual relationships. And so, like we underestimate our capacity to actually hold many relationships in suspension. So we tend to avoid it out of reflex. Right. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, that's where I've been thinking about that. And for your shop, Narrative, we were talking before the show about how relaying part of the story of the farmer to the customer and also providing the customer a space to sort of invent their own stories. People can have their first dates there. They can meet their friends and go through tough times and good times at a third place. It's all about relationships. And so that's like a metric for success that people don't really talk about that much. But it sounds like you're kind of barreling down that path. Like, this is my metric for success. It's relationships. It's even in the name.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a huge part of just being a human in my mind. And if I can help people achieve that a little bit more every day, then I feel like I've had success in that.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the concept of narrative and your evolution as a, business owner, starting this new shop, what your metric for success is, and, the relationships that you want to see formed around this thing. And one of the things that a lot of people know is that you compete. You compete a lot in the Pacific Northwest. You just were in Knoxville. You got chosen at Coffee Champs to be one of the top 18 people going to Seattle this year. Your signature drink looked amazing with fog and stage lights and all that stuff. So a lot of people see your routines. They see you out in competition. I'm wondering, and changing gears here a little bit, like, how does that influence what you're going to do at your store and how you're approaching the technical side of Narrative?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, one of our main values is that hospitality is achieved through quality. I think more than any other event or experience that I have, competition is one of those things that forces you to come in at a microscopic level and examine quality. Not only of the coffees that you're serving and the drinks that you're serving, but your personal skills. And as the, I guess, the head barista of Narrative, my personal growth is important to make sure that our shop runs at the level that I hope that it will end up running. And so just a lot of personal skills growth and skills acquisition and honing of those skills is a really big deal. I read Barista Hustles as much as the next person, but it's actually like day in and day out putting those things into practice. Competitions give you a really great goal to work toward to achieve those things. So I think that's a huge thing. And then even just the structure of the competitions themselves. Man, I really like what like Portola does with their theorem bar.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who aren't familiar, they have like a second bar attached to one of their main locations, and it's like an experimental like sit down kind of bar, and it basically functions like the signature beverage portion of a barista competition where a barista can give an experience and craft an experience for people who specifically come to want to learn more about coffee or want to have this kind of unique experience. And I think about that a lot, and just the day in and day out of a coffee shop doesn't work for that always, right? Like a lot of times people are like going to be late if you take an extra minute to tell them about what origin of coffee is from or whatever. But if you can craft out sections of space and time to really do that, and you have people who want to engage with you that way, that can be a really special moment. And so I think that's a lot of things. I guess one of the interaction and experience side of the competitions, it really impacts the way that I think about service. And then obviously just like drink creation, you have to be better at creating new drinks to be in the competition, and that definitely influences the overall menu choices that we have. Like I plan on, it's pretty common in the kind of the third new wave style coffee shops, but having a rotating seasonal drink menu that is kind of fresh and has some interesting combinations that get people excited, who they might be used to a flavored drink from kind of your average coffee shop stand set type of a thing, and they're not quite like straight coffee drinkers, but they'll try something that's kind of a unique combo or something. So
Yeah.
Competitions definitely influence that.
Yeah. So in competition, would you say, having done a few of these, you would recommend this as a preparation for somebody who is wanting to just advance themselves?
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely. Competitions are a lot like an iceberg. You only see the top part, but what informs the top part is the bulk of the experience. And so competitions are, you're only up there for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but the sheer amount of preparation and rigorous systemization of thought that's required to do one of these competitions well will the return of your investment on that will be significant. Because like there's nothing in my life that made me realize that I need to be more organized than my first barista competition, where I had to have like all these checklists of different things and go through every possible scenario in my mind. Because like what the competitions do really well, especially on your second time around or your third time around after you've had an experience and realize like the amount of preparation that really is required to do this well.
Right. Yep.
It forces you to like think and anticipate every possible outcome that you could possibly have and prepare for it. And I think that helps you as a person and also as a coffee professional in your daily service, where you can learn to anticipate the needs of your guests, where you can learn to anticipate the needs of your coworkers, where you can like see where the shop is at any given time and make important decisions that will help the shop function at a higher level. All of those things help you really get locked in. And even maybe you're like me, who you aren't naturally organized, it will give you a reason and also like give you some skill sets to organize yourself and to be better at creating systems that you can then employ to lead to your success. So
yeah, you'll probably learn a lot about yourself in the process too.
Oh, so much, especially if you have a good coach who's willing to work with you and walk with you through your and just be frank with you and honest, and then help you get there. Those things are really, really huge. So,
well, your best friend is the one who tells you the most truth, I suppose.
Yeah, there's certainly an element of reality to that.
Yeah. So competition is kind of like a gauntlet that you put yourself through, and you come out the other end a little bit more refined and maybe even more ready to act on those values that you have. So like you want to start a coffee shop, and that's going to require a heck of a lot of organization. And obviously, going through many different checklists through competitions is really going to help you get a punch list formed for your build out, more than if you had not done that. And it was your first experience with checklists. Yeah.
Well, and quite realistically, you can by the time that you're done competing after a few years, you have enough smallwares to start your own coffee shop.
Oh man, dude, I've been so long since I competed. 2007, 2008, and I still have just drawers of stuff. I don't know what to do with it, and I don't necessarily want to throw it out, but
Well, I recommend donating it to the Women in the Northwest Coffee Competitions group. If you got an extra and you're willing, they use it as a library for people who are under resourced to be able to get stuff. So if you got stuff hanging around and you want to put it to good use, that's a good place. So
okay.
I wasn't intending to shout them out, but I just did. So
there it is. Yeah. Well, they have a website or something.
Yeah, it's WINCC. I think it's probably .com. I'm not exactly sure. Again, I wasn't prepared to shout them out.
It's okay. It's cool. I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Becky Reeves had set up with somebody else. So
nice. So taking the 4 years of experience that you've had in coffee and just the dense content of the relationships, the growth, the just jumping in there, opening your own store now. There's a lot of stuff happening in your life, and you've experienced a lot of stuff. I wonder if you have any just words of wisdom for coffee professionals out there. Maybe they're just getting into coffee like you were when you were a home roaster. Maybe they want to open their own store. They want to just be a better barista where they are right now. What's some advice that you could offer them from your experience?
Everything is kind of a case by case sort of thing. If you are a home roaster and opening up your own roastery or coffee shop is your eventual goal, there's a lot of work that you could do and would need to do. There's a lot of self motivation that's required to do that really well, and self analysis I think is a really big one in terms of like reckoning with yourself where you're really at and having a firm grasp on your personal skill set and personal personality traits, I guess, that kind of will influence the way that you end up doing those things. And so having a good grasp of where you're at personally so that you can then find areas where you can improve is a really big key for anybody at any stage in your coffee thing. And then even just creating goals is a really big one, and just setting goals for yourself and working toward those goals. I know you've talked about that a bit in the podcast in the past, but it's a really essential one that anybody should be doing. And then just be patient. Don't force things to come if it's not the right time. I generally believe that timing will work itself out whenever it's ready. So yeah, I guess that's kind of some of the big ones.
Nice. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you about all
Pleasure's
this.
Been all mine.
It's been awesome. So I wonder if you could leave us with where people can find you online. How can they contact you and keep up to date on the evolution of your store, so we can all go there and get coffee?
So you can find Narrative Coffee on the internet broadly at narrative.coffee. That's our website. If you'd like to stay really up to date and receive pretty infrequent emails, but important ones, you can sign up for our mailing list. It's right on the front page. You can also follow us on Instagram at narrative.coffee, or on Twitter at narrativecoffee, or on Facebook at Narrative Coffee. And then if you want to follow me personally, which, I don't know, recommend necessarily, but you're welcome to. I'm on Twitter at Maxwell A. Mooney, on Instagram at Maxwell A. Mooney, and on Facebook, and you're welcome to come hang out there. And if you don't have enough pictures of latte art in your feed, I do have a latte art account. It's seed bearing, but I don't keep up with it too much because I don't have a shop to make liquid milk in. So yeah.
Well, I will vouch for you and say everybody should follow you on Twitter, and nobody has enough latte art. So,
so I agree.
Yeah, good.
It's amazing.
Maxwell, thanks again so much. Really great to talk to you again, and I hope to see you real soon here.
All right, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Well, I don't know about you, but Maxwell's story and his perspective on service and hospitality and quality is one that I think we all need to incorporate in our lives a little bit more. So really great stuff there. Plus, if you're going to build your business on anything, relationships and community is probably the best thing that you can choose as a cornerstone of your business. Just hearing about all that is on Maxwell's heart and what's at the core of his business and his drive, it lets you know that Everette, Washington is going to be in for a really fantastic experience with Narrative Coffee. So Thanks again, Maxwell, for sharing your story, your insights with us. We all wish you the very best of luck and success with the new shop. Show notes for this episode are available at keystotheshop.com under the resources tab, which I've linked to in the show description. Also in the show description here, you can find links to the resources mentioned in the interview, as well as, ways to contact Maxwell at his website, narrative.coffee, and through email. So if you have any questions or feedback, email me, Chris at keystotheshop.com. Love to hear from you and see how we're doing, how we can serve you better, what we can change, what we can keep the same, all that stuff. Just want to continually make this show more valuable to you. So feel free to do that, and I would greatly appreciate it. And I greatly appreciate all of you. And I hope the rest of your week is just filled with great people and great coffee, because they are the keys to the shop.